All right, welcome to Adam Kyle Jackson Photography. Here's my YouTube channel. So if you're joining me from over at Instagram, welcome. So I got a confession to make. I've been going through my photos and I've got a magazine submission. I've got a magazine asking me for photos. And I started going through some of my older stuff. And when I mean older, let's say 6 months ago. And I think they're over processed. Now, there's a fine line between art and journalistic integrity with your photos. And so I've always looked at my photography as art. But if you want to put stuff in a magazine or you want your work to be, maybe hung on a gallery wall somewhere, you might want to work on your processing. So I've been working on my processing tremendously over the last, let's say, a couple of months now. And I've been experimenting with just hitting Lightroom Auto. It's kind of like therapy for me, going through a process of decompressing, getting away from the over processing, getting away from all the plugins, getting away from any filters, and just seeing if I can get a good photo. And when I say good, good is relative, but one of the photos that I think, okay, I might have nailed this one, and seeing what it does when you hit Lightroom Auto. And lo and behold, there's a lot of them that do look pretty good with just literally hitting Lightroom Auto. Now, that being said, I'd say going a step further than Lightroom Auto is still okay and maintaining journalistic integrity. So let's go look. Let's take a look. I'm going to go to my screen now. Let's take a look and let's see here what on earth was I up to. And so this is the photo right here of mine that was heard round the world. I don't know how many people have seen this. I wish I could take a time machine and go back in time and redo the processing. The irony is though, if I hadn't processed it the way I did back then, would it have gotten the views? Would it have gotten the attention? Would I even have that kind of attention to begin with? So let's take a look. So here it is right here. This is the photo. This is it. And, you can see it's got 24,000 likes, which to me is just like a crazy, humbling experience. I have gained a ton of exposure, lots of followers since then. So this is back in June 20th, 23rd. This was a supercell that I shot up in North Texas in the Panhandle outside of Perryton, Texas. And this is how I processed it. I thought the hail core looked cool and I wanted to do an extreme crop here. And this photo has literally been shared probably, who knows, it's 20 million plus people. It's been published in magazines, been published in newspapers. People still ask me for it to this day. And I go back and I look at it, I'm like, what could I have done differently? And, photos like this are once in a lifetime for especially, me. So I'm a storm chaser by nature, but really didn't focus a lot on taking the photography, really was just doing the weather reports. Now, getting a photo like this has really put me in a position to go challenge myself to make sure that I'm representing what is what. And so, what is over processing? Let's go back to Lightroom. This is the original. So this is the raw file, untouched. There's and there is blue, there's clouds, there's all those things and the elements that are still there in my what I consider overprocessed version, but I would say the raw file is not processed enough. And so let's go test it. So I'm going to hit Lightroom Auto right now and see what it does. See what Lightroom thinks this should look like. And so here we are. So Lightroom Auto did brighten the image up and it actually looks pretty good. Let me make sure I've got the profile corrections set and everything here. I think I've got everything the way I want it to. And yes, it does look good. This, I think, could be improved upon. Now, here's where I think I went wrong a few months ago was you can hit the contrast in these storm photos pretty extreme. And, that is one thing. And I think saturation was a problem. Let's see if we can fix the color balance the way I had it before. Maybe I used the tone curves. Yeah, it's probably the tone curves. And let's get back to that original. I would have had to have used a filter tool here to get the foreground to be balanced with the clouds at the top, because there's a massive difference in lighting situation here. And I'm just kind of quickly going through this to see if I can get back to, this is the standard. This is what was posted. This is what I own up to it. But I want to continue improving. I want to make my photography journey a never-ending journey here, and also just go through and let's talk about over processing. So I think if you're going to be a landscape photographer, there is a community of photographers out there that have been doing this a long time. They've been doing this since 1970s, and they've got a portfolio. They've been doing it since film photography. And so you're not going to fool those guys or gals that you can process anything to look like anything. You can literally draw something in Photoshop. You're not going to fool the film folks, because back then you take a photo, you process it, it is what it is. That's your result. And if it's great, it's great. If it's not, it's a throwaway. You put it in your own personal photo album. So today we've got a scenario where anybody with a digital camera can go out there and take a photo and then add elements in. Today we've got sky replacement with Photoshop. And so I'm not here to advocate everybody here must be a journalist and you must adhere to journalistic standards when you're posting stuff. But if you're going to do something in your photo that wasn't normally there, you might want to say something about it. I've tried my best, and especially recently, putting in the descriptions to show folks, here's what I did, here's how I processed it, here's something that I did a little bit different. And then I even post the raw files. Does that make it any better? No, but it does help with some of the transparency. So you might want to start with that. So one, make sure you're transparent with what you're doing. And then two, in the age of doing this type of photography, there's some folks that would take a lightning bolt like this. This lightning bolt actually happened. And one of the most common questions I got from this photo, and it kind of like just threw me off a little bit because I just wasn't expecting that kind of response, was, "Hey man, where'd you get that lightning bolt?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And so it was kind of like me being ignorance is bliss, because I didn't know enough to know that that was like a thing. You could go take a photo, and let's go back to Lightroom, and I'll show you here's the original uncropped. This is the actual photo, and that somebody would take a lightning bolt and throw it in here to make the photo, in their opinion, I guess, feel more complete, which I don't have any problems with that. You just got to make sure that you're doing it. So, or you're identifying what you did, because you don't want to have somebody asking you, "Hey man, where'd you get your lightning bolt?" So that's number two, is the Photoshop aspect. I think if you do Photoshop anything in that wasn't there before, that's taking it too far. That's something now you're in the artwork realm. You need to say something about it. It needs to be noticeable. If it's something that you just do all the time, maybe that's just your stick and that's your thing. But like I said, I don't have anything against photoshopping something in that wasn't normally there. But if you're going to try to maintain some sort of integrity, you need to say something about it. And then three, color. So, there's this saturation tool here where we could take it to a wild extreme. And so I think I'm learning a lot about color grading, using the monitors to your advantage. So I've got NEC monitors, I've got LG monitors, I've got the iMac here with the 5K. I've got them all set up to different color temperatures, different grading. I look at it on the iPhone, I look at it on the iPad. I look at it everywhere I can to make sure that it's consistent across the board, that my colors look right, that there's nothing that just screams like, "Oh, you just went nuts on that one." And so here's some things that you can do to these photos. Let me show you a trick here. So I can take a radial filter tool, I can take a range mask, I can take a color, and I can say, all right, I only want to impact the blue because the blue looks cool. And let's enhance this blue. Let's make it look even more crazy than it already is. And so now you've got a really interesting glow with the blue here that, you know, the rest of the image wasn't impacted. I used a radial filter with a mask. Is this okay? Probably not. So you probably want to say something about this. So if I do this, if I ever do this, I want to make sure I identify, okay, I did some editing here and there. There's some other tools that you can use to this effect to make it look what I consider cool. And there's nothing wrong with doing this provided that you're being transparent about it. So I think the next thing is number 4 is what I'm going to call structure. And so if you see this raw file, this is a raw file here. And let's go ahead and turn this radial filter off because there, this is back to raw. So in the clouds here, there are some areas that I feel look soft. And I shot this handheld, so I probably should have been on a tripod. Luckily for me, I got this one sharp. There's about, if you look down here below, there's about 1,000 other exposures here that weren't sharp. Some of them were out of focus. I missed lightning bolts. Just got lucky on this one. And so here is the cloud. And to me, this cloud doesn't look sharp enough. So item number 4 here is sharpening, adding structure. I'm going to call it structure. Is that okay? And so we can go nuts with the clarity. We can actually turn the clarity up on these clouds to 100, and it doesn't really do much until you do one thing here. You pull down the black, and then you up the white a little bit. And so now you've created this contrast in the cloud that wasn't there before. That's probably not okay. That's probably something that's a little too extreme. There's other tools that you can also use. So if we wanted to edit this, I've got all these filters here. We could go throw this into any of the tools I use. I use Nick Collection by DxO. You can add structure there. You can add structure in many places there. And what that does is it pulls out the detail in these clouds and it makes it look like it didn't actually look. So I'm going to actually load this into Color Effects Pro so we can demonstrate this. And I think that once you've got a comfort zone for what works for you and what works for, you know, journalistic standards, just go look at a whole bunch of photos, go look at the pros, go look at what they're doing. If you're intending to be published, you know, if you're just an artist and you want to throw stuff up on a wall, or maybe you have a fan base that loves what you're doing, don't worry about it, you know. But beware that people will call you out on that stuff and they'll say, hey, where'd you get that lightning bolt? And so you want to be prepared. You also don't want someone calling you out and you not having the goods. You not being able to go, here, I'll produce the raw file. You know, you want to know where this lightning bolt comes from. Here's the raw file. Make sure you can produce the goods. And so I'm now loaded into Color Effects Pro. And here you have a set of filters. And so this is the raw file right here. Let me show you what my basic filters look like. So if I go to what I call a base here, and I generate this file, this raw file using a base, I would consider this tasteful. Maybe it's a little too punchy on the dark and light and center. Maybe I got too much of a vignette in there. It's, you know, it's not a one-stop shop here, but the key, the differentiator between this and the raw file is detail. I'm going to turn off Detail Extractor and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the raw file with no detail. Here's the raw file with detail. So the detail adds structure to this. It pulls out the elements. It lets you see. And, you know, when you're looking at this with your raw, you know, your eyes, who knows? It was just so mind-bendingly beautiful in person. I don't even know what I was looking at. And so does this look more representative of what the eyeball sees? Maybe. Would somebody call me out on this as being overprocessed? Probably. But this is where you got to get your comfort zone and understand that if you're going to maintain some sort of standard for what your processing is, that you can defend what you're doing and that you call it out as you see it. Say, okay, I posted this picture, or you submit it to a photo contest, or you submit it to a magazine. You say, all right, this was touched up. This was done through DxO. I added some this, and this. And then you're okay. You know, if somebody, and then at that point, if someone decides to call you out, you know, they may just not like your artwork, and that's cool. But if you don't want to be called out for adding stuff in that shouldn't be there, such as structure, that I think, to me, structure is one of the things that makes these storm photos, makes any of the photos pop out the most. It has the most material impact even over saturation, even over adding, some dodge and burn. I think the detail extractor is a powerful tool. So if you're curious about detail extractor and you want to use this thing, I'm going to put a link down below. You can download for free Nick Collection by DxO, and by downloading, you help me help the channel. I do get sponsors for those downloads. But those are some things that I wanted to just discuss about, over processing in general. That I'm painfully self-aware of my own work. I'm painfully self-aware of some of the things that I've posted in the past. I'm painfully self-aware of what the competition looks like that's out there. There's some super duper, just extremely talented people that, they could probably go take a raw file and just blow you away. And so some of it's a matter of luck, some of it's a matter of positioning, and it's just shoot a lot. And then practicing processing. So I've been practicing processing incessantly now for probably close to 7 years, really taking a fine-tooth comb look at what I'm doing over the last couple of months due to some of this new exposure. It's not all fun and games anymore. I do have people depending upon what I'm doing. I do submit things to some things that do get published, and so I'm taking a look at this. I'm really wanting to go through some of my processing techniques, make sure that I'm doing journalistic standards. So I hope you found this helpful. This is some of the things that I go through. So these are some of the tools that I use. Just wanted to do a quick video. I'm shooting on the Nikon D850 instead of the Sony A7R3. And let me know, what do you think compared to the other videos? I think I kind of like it. Also, make sure you follow me on Instagram, Adam Kyle Jackson. Let me know over the comments over there. Hey, dude, you overprocessed this, or ask me where I get my sky replacements from. That's my new favorite thing is, hey, man, where'd you get that sky from? It's like a dealer in the back alley for skies. I think I'm going to become that guy. Hey, you want a sky? Make sure you go over to my Facebook, join the Facebook group, Adam Kyle Jackson Photography. We are going to hit 2,500 members. So since September, started growing this thing. Didn't expect anything out of it. Now we're probably going to hit 3,000 by the end of the year. It's cool. It's cool stuff. Go over there and tell me what kind of processing. If you have any questions about processing, or if you want to go through some of your photos and have a critique, send me a comment. Put a comment down below. Make sure you like, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications. And I'm going to go under process some photos now. So you guys have a wonderful evening.